Welcome to NovoEDTalks, where we reveal real-world strategies and expert insights from learning and development professionals. In every episode, we chat with practitioners, course designers, learning strategists, and business leads. We hear about their experiences in the learning industry and predictions for the profession and the trends that they're seeing. But before we get started, a little bit about NovoEd. Founded at Stanford's Social Algorithms Lab in 2012, NovoEd is a people-centric, capability-building platform that combines social and collaborative learning to drive performance readiness at scale. Through cohort-based experiences centered around human interaction, NovoEd taps into collective wisdom, placing each learner at the center of perspective, application, and expertise. Large enterprises such as 3M, GE, Marriott International, and Nestle partner with NovoEd to accelerate their critical initiatives, reconnect teams, and achieve rapid alignment through learning that is felt, experienced, and swiftly transformed into impact. Now, let's meet our guest for today's episode. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the NovoEDTalks podcast, a place for training trailblazers to get real. I'm Lynn Christensen Esker of NovoEd, and today I'm joined by Sara Dionne, Vice President of Learning and Development at Comcast, a US-based multinational mass media, telecommunications, and entertainment conglomerate. Currently, Sara leads a fully centralized organization at Comcast, leading uLearn. Sara, welcome to NovoEDTalks.
Thank you so much for having me, Lynn.
I'm so glad to have you on this. And I think you're going to come with a wealth of knowledge here, so I'm very excited about our conversation. Let's start off a little bit about your background, what you do at Comcast, what brought you to where you are at Comcast, and anything else you'd like to tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am at this point, 25-year career HR professional, ranging from HR business partner to all the talent acquisitions to adoption and change management. And over the last few years, I've been leading uLearn, as you mentioned, which is Comcast's centralized global learning team of about 300 learning professionals. And we deliver learning soup to nuts across Comcast. And our mission is really to deliver learning solutions that drive business growth, innovation, and employee engagement from the learners across the company. So we support all 65,000 employees, and that ranges from things like frontline, technicians or call center agents, all the way up through executives. And we have a real focus on skills-based development. So how do we build the skills regardless of where you are, as well as shifting into more and more, of a digital transformation and learning. And then how do we keep moving in our journey to personalized learning, which I can talk about more and more as we chat today.
Yeah, I'd love that. Yeah. Tell us about that shift in skills that you're seeing and how are you addressing that?
Yeah, so for us, when it comes to skills, if I, kind of take a step back, I think we have to be staying agile with where the workforce is. And I don't know that anyone can argue right now that things are stable out there in the world, right? And so for us, that means how do we continually assess skills, build skills in real time, and offer learning experiences that empower employees to choose some of their own paths when it comes to skills, right? So anyone in learning knows, though, it's really hard to be able to do this and to make that shift with skills. If I think about some specific things that we've done, we have an enterprise-wide skills program for all of professional leadership-based skills called Skill Forward. And it really is something that comes from the business and the learners that we bring to life. And what I mean by that is we go out and crowdsource every year. What do you need to deliver for the business? What skills do you need to be able to do that? And we ask everyone so that we can also compare, well, what did leaders say versus what did employees say? Or is it a certain function? And with all of that vast data, as well as external research, we come back with the strategy across the organization to say, this is what we're all going to be doing and how we're going to do it together as the year goes on.
That sounds daunting when you have 65,000 employees. How do you do this at that kind of scale?
Yeah, so scale is a challenge. Is a challenge for anyone in learning in any large organization because one, our learners span levels and functions. So it could be technology, it could be sales, it could be operations, it could be more of an admin function like HR. And each of those functions and then people in those functions have unique needs in contexts that they work in. So our challenge is always like that scale in how do we deliver relevant personalized learning across the company that spans all of this. And our thought is, okay, but if we can get the input from all those people as our starting point, we've already come across one big hurdle, right? Because now we have learning that is very much aligned to what the business needs and what the business is trying to deliver for the organization. So then our next piece is okay, but within that, people still want their own thing, right? Everyone does. That's where, kind of we're humans. So we have a vision of how do we meet each learner where they are. We're very much on a journey here. This is not a we have this figured out, check the box. But we have certain programs, like for example, within our sales world, we have a key product that allows you as the learner to go in and almost choose your own adventure. Like when I used to read those books as a kid, and
Right.
you can go in and say, you know what, this is what the skill I need to focus on. But even once you're in there, now depending on what your interaction is, that learning is going to change for you. So it is assessing you as you go and say, no, they need to go this way with this next, or they need to go this way based on where you are in building that skill. So it's one example of something that we've tried to do to figure out how do you take that scale, but bring it down to that personalized human level.
And how do you do that? I mean, without giving out all your secrets, but
Yeah, I have a beyond incredible product in portfolio and instructional design team. And we're really doing it all behind the scenes by saying, here's all of the different like options like that can come together as if it was an algorithm, right? If they do this, this, or this, then the answer could be this, this, or this. So we have done it all behind the scenes to help the learners move that forward.
that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So, what are some of your biggest challenges? I mean, besides obviously scale. Scale is going to be probably your number one, but especially in the world that you live in, this vertical,
Mm,
what are some of the challenges in preparing your workforce?
yeah, I think outside of our scale and the need to personalize, one of the things that I would say a lot of my peers are facing is the timeline of change now is faster than ever, and learning plays a big role in change. So whether it is the change of skills, which no longer have a 10-year shelf life, right? They maybe have an 18-month shelf life. And learning has not always been incredibly agile, right? To quickly adjust to that. A lot of learning organizations have very large, heavy programs, and those aren't easy to just turn a corner. And as change has become, from, a skill shelf life of like, say, 10 years to 18 months, or in some cases, I feel like change is happening within minutes. We have to be agile enough to say, how do we do that? How do we align to that? And for us, one of the ways that we have solutioned this that we feel like, what learning can bring to the table is we've had to really shift our learning over the last few years to be more micro in content with all of kind of the additional learning modalities bolted onto it. So, what I mean from that is if I think about the skill forward that I talked to you about, and let's say, the skill that we're building is, project management. You may have several options in your role to take really quick micro learnings, like under 10 minutes, and walk away with a new skill or two. Maybe even walk away with a tangible map of something for you to do. But you might be someone that says, that's great. I learn better when I get to talk to my peers about something. So now you have a choice. You can sign up for a peer cohort that would be facilitated by us. Or maybe you're someone that says, I feel like I have to role play the skill back to know if I'm learning or not. So you can sign up for a one-on-one role player coaching. So we've tried to build our learning in a way that we give you the skill in an asynchronous manner for the most part and in a very short way. But now you have options to build the skill and a development path that works for you personally.
Yeah, and I can imagine that um, comes in handy, that sort of personalized wishing if you could, you know, connect with other people, especially for big things like leadership,
Mm-hmm.
things like maybe more junior employees. I mean, you've got that whole succession, planning and pipeline that you have to be building. It works that way too, I would imagine.
Yeah, so what is unique about our enterprise-wide skill program is exactly what you just talked about. It is not a every quarter we are as a company all focused on one set of skills. However, it's broken up by where you are in the company. So are you an individual contributor? Are you a people leader? Or are you a leader of leaders? So while we may all be focused on the same thing, how it comes to you might be a little bit different so that it aligns better with where you are within the organization. But then at the end of the day, that leader of leaders can go back to their whole organization, right? And say, hey, I've been working, on the coaching skill set with the rest of you. Here's something that I learned, or what did you learn? Because it's still the same focus area.
I'm curious about how your team keeps up to date to be able to keep the trainings up to date. How does that work?
Yeah. So, yeah, outside of our annual piece where we every year are doing the research of what are we hearing out there, doing our internal data collection, my team is structured in a way that I have people whose job it is to be out there with the business and with HR partners, consulting with them, understanding what's going on, helping, with where the gaps might be and coming back with solutions. I think it's really important in a learning organization if you are not aligned to the business. And if you are coming up with solutions that no one asked for to achieve something, I think you're going to be missing the real impact that you can be making. And so that's why we have individuals that is their whole role, is spending time doing that to make sure that we're constantly shifting and innovating as we need to.
And how do you measure once you've put out that training?
Oh,
You
I
have
know.
eyes that you go by? Like, how does that work at Comcast?
Yeah, isn't data the hardest thing when it comes to learning?
Really?
It is such a challenge. So we report out monthly, though. We do have our key learning insights. And then twice a year, we'll do a deep dive into the health of learning and the impact that our products are having. So we look at the easy things that I think most learning organizations can get at: completions, hours of learning. Okay, we can get to that stuff easily. But in a lot of cases, we're also doing a next level. So, one of the metrics that's really important to us is what we call learner adoption. So, essentially, if we think of everything we do in learning from a product mindset, it's just like a market penetration type of stat. So, what percent of our learners are taking the learning? And then we take that to what percent are taking them how many times, right? Because that helps us see, one, are these products penetrating within the organization? But two, are they engaging enough that people are going back more than one time because we know that they're sticky? So that's a key metric that we've built over the last couple of years. And then one of the other things that's so important, but also one of our biggest challenges, is ROI stories. So where we can, we do partner with the business to say, okay, we've now done this. We can isolate who took it, who took what, whether they took one or five. How do we look at their results within the business and start, making some assumptions and tying these things together to see what the impact is? I wish I had, the easy button to do that on everything we do, but it takes a lot of effort. It's something that we're leaning into more and more as we're able to.
So, as learning and development programs have evolved, mentoring seems to be a big thing. And I know you touched on that earlier, but
Mm.
um, how does that work in specifically to what it is that you do in L&D?
Yeah, so mentoring does fit in for us. But and I think it for me, I define mentoring more broadly. So I'll talk through that a bit. So, we start with a micro content, right? So somebody goes in, does the learning. But now that mentoring can come in if they want to raise their hand and say, "Can I talk to so and so now to have a one on one to help me work through this?" And they can do that more than once. So that is where like the everyday mentoring comes in with how we provide learning within the organization from learning.
So Comcast has a huge population of frontline workers.
Yeah.
That's got to be very difficult when you've got so many people out in the field, you've got technicians, at people's homes
Mhm.
and, working on lines and cables and things. How do you manage that?
Yes, it's a great question. So, one, we do have a huge frontline population, and they are incredibly important to the success of Comcast and to our business. So, we have to meet them where they are. So, if I think about new hire and as they join our organization, they all have new hire onboarding journeys. It is step one through the
Okay.
end. Um, and along those journeys, we provide support from business leaders like within their functions who are come in to help support or either around a specific topic or to do role plays with them or to just bring some context in to what they're learning. And that can be in the field if you are, for example, a technician, or it could be, a virtual exchange. And at the same time, our facilitators who are experts across all of these things also do multimodality. So they will be on and taking the individuals through the journey for, whether it's 2 weeks or 8 weeks, depending on what role you're in. That individual also helps them throughout the entire journey bringing that learning to life for them. So we go at it in a few different ways.
To kind of telescope up from that, um, how do you engage this population of people,
Mm.
global, hybrid, out in the field? How do you build a real teamwork, common culture with all those extenuating circumstances?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I one of the biggest ways we've been able to do it is that we are completely centralized. So the learning we give, it doesn't matter where you're sitting in the United States. It is the same learning that you're going to be getting. And that also means that if you are in a different frontline organization, for example, you're still getting the same product training no matter which one you're in. We keep things that can be consistent that, are not maybe specific to how do I tie these wires that some may not need to know, but you need to know about this product. Everyone is getting the same learning. So they're hearing the same messaging, seeing the same branding across the board. And that has been a triumph of many years. I have an incredible leader and team who's been working on that because it takes a while to get there when there's so many humans involved.
Oh, absolutely. The scope is just unimaginable to me. So you're in a great place to kind of see an overall view of the entire learning and development industry, if you will. Where do you see L&D? It's changing so much.
Mhm.
Where do you see us 3 years from now, 5 years from now?
Yeah. As an L&D leader, if you are not asking yourself how to redefine L&D right now, you're going to be left behind. And where my mind goes is a couple of things I've already talked about. One being the personalization, and how important that's going to be because that is how adults learn, these days. The second shift or another shift that I'm seeing that is a little bit more from a macro level, but gets me very excited, is that we're seeing this convergence of the human skills and the technology skills that's not theoretical anymore, right? As AI comes in and is changing how we all work, it's great to learn how to use the AI. Sure, and you can probably become an expert on Chat GPT quickly or Copilot. But what about in a year from now when Copilot's a member of your team? Have you built those human skills to figure out how you bring that change to your team, right? How do you build trust and collaboration amongst your team with the technology? Obviously, the critical thinking that comes with any of this technology. And that's where I think learning has a real big opportunity to navigate this disruption that's happening by building the empathy and precision skills, because everyone's going to learn the AI skills, right? So, how do you build the other pieces that you need to go around that? That's a really exciting piece of work to me. And when I think about what that means for L&D ourselves, I can see an organization that starts shifting from it's not just all about facilitation, but it's about how do you understand the business? What is the data that feeds this technology? How do you leverage this technology to engage learners in a very different way than they're used to? And that's going to be a real shift for I think for a lot of L&D organizations.
Yeah, I would guess so because, you also have to deal with privacy and your own
Yep.
and ethics at some point. And
Oh, yes. And that critical thinking, people that, you cannot put something into a chat or a copilot and just say, here's my work product. You
right.
don't, I mean, it may not have understood what you were asking, or it may have hallucinations, or maybe grabbing data from an internet that's not even accurate and giving you a solution on that. You need to be able to look at it and say, well, how did it end up here? Does this make sense? Do I need to now ask it questions? That critical thinking piece is going to be so important as we move forward.
I think you may have just answered this, but to end this conversation, I'd like to ask you what kind of advice you have for
Mm.
people in L&D. I mean, you're at
Yeah.
the top. So, I'd love to hear what you have to say to people who are not quite where you are.
I would say you need to start with the learner's voice and experience and the business needs. And how do you align those things together so that what you're bringing to the table is driving the business in some way, shape, or form at the end of the day in a way that resonates with your learner so that you are engaging them and creating the impact? If you don't do that, there's a big missed opportunity of what is out there. The second for me would be what we were just talking about is start thinking about that integration of human and technology. How do you do, hey, here's how to use this new AI tool with here's change agility skill that you're probably going to need on something like this. Or here's a collaboration skill and how are you going to be inclusive using a technology like this? So that, for me is going to be it. And if I take myself out of learning, and just give the advice of a general leader out there, I would say that you got to remind yourself when you're uncomfortable you're growing, and that's where we're going to be for a little bit as things keep shifting.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you today.
Thank you so much for having me, Lynn. This was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you, Sarah. And thanks to everyone listening in for this episode. See you next time on the NovoEd Talks podcast.